Well, thank you for joining us, True Crime Files of Los Angeles, Inside Story. As you know, we've been talking about the criminal justice system, some of the concerns that people have, especially the media has, as to how well is it working. And here, if you look at this one, it says criminal justice reforms, and the top one is sentencing. Well, one of the major concerns that people have about the criminal justice system is the sentencing. And in the last several podcasts, we talked about retribution, eye for an eye. We talked about deterrence, how do you deter people from committing crime. And our last one was about rehabilitation. Many of you feel very strongly about rehabilitation. But today we're going to talk about incapacitation, which could be called incarceration. And we're going to take a hard look at that because what are the positives? What are the negatives of that? And what I'd like to do in incapacitation, the objective of it is to send the person to prison or jail, some type of confinement. The purpose is to protect society. And the other part of that is to prevent the person from committing crimes. So those are the two parts to incapacitation. And one of the things about incapacitation, it is closely related to deterrence because the prison has to be painful or uncomfortable. So the person says, no, I don't want to repeat. I don't want to go back. Therefore, I'm not going to commit any more crimes. In other words, they're deterred. So incapacitation makes deterrence work. Now, what I want to do is talk about specific cases. We're going to talk about individual defendants, and I'm going to give it to you to decide what do you think they should receive as far as incarceration, incapacitation. The first one I want to talk about is Timothy McGhee. I did a lot of work on this case. It was a very complicated case. He was considered the Monster of Atwater village. It's an area in the, I guess you'd say, the northeast section of the city of Los Angeles. And he was the head of the TOONERVILLE gang. And some of you are going to laugh about it because it was from a cartoon strip, the TOONERVILLE trolley. And Atwater Village was the end of the line for the streetcar tracks in the old days. And that was the premise of the TOONERVILLE trolley cartoons. So he's the leader of this group, and they're very, very proud of their area, and they want to keep it safe for TOONERVILLE gang members. Now, I'm going to go through a number of crimes here very quickly so you get a flavor for Timothy McGhee. He didn't want tagging in his area of Atwater Village, and he saw some rival gang members, and they're tagging. And so he sees them there, and he goes up, and he tells them, you don't tag in my area, and if you do, you're dead. And the two of them that had the spray cans, they took off running, and he chased one down into one of the Shell service stations. And the guy is stuck in the office there. He's holding the glass door, and McGhee comes up and shoots him, shoots through the glass door, shoots the other gang member. One of the gang members, he's paraplegic for life because he is injured from it. Now, several days later, there was McGhee and his gang members were driving by a recreation center, and they saw this young man walking by. He wasn't doing anything in particular, and they asked him, "Where are you from?" And he kind of hesitated about it, didn't want to say anything. And they told him to, pull up his sweatshirt. He did, and it said Frogtown on it. That was a rival gang, and so immediately McGhee starts shooting him, and he's shot so many times, standing right there in front of the recreation room. Now, there was another, this may have been a week later, this gentleman, he was walking by, and he had the name Wayro, and that was the same name that McGhee liked to use as a nickname. And he said, "You can't use my name." And as a result of that, he takes a gun and shoots the guy right there on the street. He is killed right there for having a nickname similar to McGhee. Then it was several months later, the TOONERVILLE gang members were robbing some people, I don't know, about a mile away. And there is a call that comes out. There's a robbery off of Fletcher Drive. 4-door brown Honda Accord, 3 occupants. The word goes out to LAPD officers, and they spot the car of the robbers, and they started following it. So a pursuit takes place, and they're driving up kind of at a high rate of speed. But as they got closer to the Atwater Village area, McGhee and his gang members threw things out in the street, obstacles, so that the police car would have to slow down. They wanted the police car to go slower because when they turned the corner there, they were able to shoot. And here's where McGhee is standing, and he's shooting numerous rounds into the police car as the police car makes the turn there. And you can see one of the rounds, where that red circle is, one of the bullets went right through the insignia of the LAPD police car. Very dangerous. Many shots were fired. Just to show the firepower of McGhee's TOONERVILLE gang, these are the weapons that they used to shoot at the police. So you can see how dangerous they were. Now, another thing about McGhee, he didn't like witnesses. He knew, he'd been to prison a number of times, and every time he went to prison, it was because of some witness who testified against him. He didn't want that to happen. He was down in the Los Angeles River. There was some gang graffiti going on, and he'd shoot somebody. That wasn't such a big deal, but he sees a homeless man standing there watching, and he doesn't want any witnesses. So he goes over to that homeless man and just blows him away. That elderly man wasn't doing anything. He just happened to see what was going on. Now, it might have been several months later, McGhee's family, several of the members were involved in narcotic dealing, and there was an informant that gave information to the police about the family, and McGhee found out about it. He went out and killed all 3 people who were involved as informants, and they're members of their family. So that was how he took care of situations he didn't like. November 8th, 2001, and this is a turning point in McGhee's criminal career. He sees a car, an SUV, driving by very slowly on the streets near Glendale, and he thinks it might be somebody who was involved in gang activity. Doesn't know for certain, but he starts shooting at it. Shoots the car up, and here you can see, look how many bullets were fired into this SUV. And one of the occupants, a young lady, she was on the passenger side, and she's hit. She's killed. So it was very unfortunate for the occupants of the SUV. But what happened to McGhee was he had a cell phone, and he dropped it. During the shooting, he turned very quickly, and his cell phone fell on the ground, and he didn't know where it went. So before the police arrived, he had a friend. There was Christina, we called up and said, hey, come over and help me. She drives over there to help McGhee, and he says, look for her cell phone. I dropped it somewhere, and she's looking all over, and she's trying to be careful because the police are just arriving at the crime scene. So that's what happens. She starts driving away, but the police eventually find that cell phone and is able to be tracked back to Timothy McGhee. Now, as she's pulling away, Christina is stopped by the police to be questioned. They ask her to go to the station. They get information from her. She didn't say much of anything, but McGhee was afraid that she was going to be an informant, that she was going to say something against him. So About a week later, he set up a birthday party for her. And they have a birthday party, I think it was out in West Covina. He has her there, and after the birthday party is over, they've celebrated, had their cake and drinks. She's driving away, and McGhee, before she pulls out of the area there, McGhee comes up with his gun and starts firing at her, executing her in the backseat of her car. She's trying to put the locks on the door as he's firing at her. Now, this is the lady who stuck her neck out to save him, to help him, and he executes her. Well, what type of individual was McGhee? Now, he wanted to be a rap star, and he did poetry. And this is his book on poetry. His concern about police, judges, and DAs. Catch, spray them with my AK. And he goes on to say, in my body bag, we serve up such heat, ways of killing you, just never heard of, was killing grave plastic bodies stacked to the ceiling. Now, this was the way he expressed himself, which may tell you a little bit about McGhee. Here I come, a last chance to run. Killer with a gun, out to have some fun. In my dreams I hear screams. Pleasure I feel is so obscene. Well, what type of individual would write such poetry? Anyway, these are the different charges. When I had to help put the case together, I wanted the jury to understand, okay, these are all the charges against him. And when it came to sentencing, I wanted the jurors to understand that McGhee was a danger in and out of prison, meaning he killed a lot of people when he's on the streets, but every time he was in prison, look at all the crimes that he committed. And just an example here. Here he attacks a guard. And a lot of you have the feeling that, all you have to do with these people is just lock them up and put them in a jail cell or a prison cell. But here he's causing almost a riot in one of the facilities that he's in. So, he's a danger in and out of prison. So, who was McGhee? I don't know. He would hunt humans just to kill them. And, some of you with your thoughts about rehabilitation, maybe it wasn't his fault, but he didn't have any mental illness. He didn't have an abusive childhood. And certainly these weren't isolated, and these weren't innocent, situation. Well, we were only able to find witnesses to prosecute him on 3 murders and 6 attempted murders. And let's get back to what we said about when we consider incarceration. What are the different factors that come into play? Was the crime serious? Was the murder serious? Was it in a depraved way committing the crime? Is there a pattern of criminal activity? Was it just an isolated incident? Was he remorseful? Did he have attempts to rehabilitate? And then, the question is, community at serious risk if he's put back on the street. So those are your considerations. And in this case, I think most of you would agree that he would be a danger and it would be a high risk if he was put back on the street. Now I want to take another one. And this one is Nicholas Rodriguez. A little bit different. He was a gang member, and in the Bowman Park, I guess you'd say La Puente area, and he would go around looking for people to rob. And there was this man at a car wash. He was trying to wash his car and had the keys in it, and Rodriguez comes up and robs him and is trying to steal his car. But the man was smart enough, he had a kill switch on his car, and he flipped it. And that was very frustrating to Rodriguez because he was stealing the car, but he couldn't drive it away. He then went several blocks away. He was very frustrated, not getting anything, and he saw two teenagers. They were talking to another young teenager, and they were kind of wannabes, and he thought, well, they've got to have some money. Undoubtedly, they have some money. He goes up and he demands them, give me your money. And they didn't. They didn't have any, and they didn't give him any. And as a result of that, he takes the gun and he starts shooting. And he hits the one, and he falls down, and the other one is begging for his life. Please, please, don't shoot me, please. But Rodriguez takes his gun and he shoots it and empties it out. Shoots both of these young teenagers on the sidewalk there. So now his gun is empty. He doesn't have any more ammunition. So later that day, he's wandering around with his friend, and they're kind of waving their hands. They're trying to get somebody to stop and give them a ride. And this fellow Beto is with his girlfriend, and they were driving by. They see him, and Beto, hey, I think I know that guy. Stop. So the girlfriend, they stop, and Beto is from another gang. He's from the La Puente, the main gang, and Rodriguez is from Blackwood, which is an affiliate with it. So they stop, and Rodriguez gets in the back seat with Beto, and they start talking back and forth. And then, for some reason, Rodriguez says, hey, you were in prison. Yeah, and I think you told the police about one of our members who got shot and killed. And Beto said, no, I didn't have anything to do with that. Don't know what you're talking about. And now Rodriguez wants to do harm to Beto, but his gun is empty. He doesn't have any. So he tells his friend who's in the passenger seat up front, look in the glove box, see if there's a knife in there or something. And Rodriguez wanted to teach Beto a lesson if he were an informant. So, his friend up front says, hey, all I have here is a bottle opener. Just give it to me. He takes the bottle over, and he gouges out Beto's eye, takes his eye, pries it out, and then hands it to Beto's girlfriend, who's doing the driving. Of course, she's scared to death. She throws the eyeball out the car and continues driving. And if that wasn't enough, Rodriguez then, gets Beto, you got to admit, that you gave that information. And he said, no, I had nothing to do with it. I didn't talk to the police, didn't do it. And he gouges out his other eye. And then he starts torturing him in the back seat there. The girlfriend's scared to death. She's driving. They're threatening her. And they have her drive over to Turnboat Canyon in kind of the North Whittier area. And they tell her to pull over. And they finish beating up on Beto, kill him. And they dump his body over the side of the embankment there. So that's what happened. Eventually, the deputy sheriffs find the two of them, they're arrested, and they're prosecuted. Now you can imagine Beto's girlfriend had to come to court and testify to how these guys gouged the eyes out of her boyfriend and then killed him and threw his body over the embankment. So, when I was helping put the case together, these are all the charges. And I wanted the jury to see what the charges were. And the jury found Rodriguez guilty. And he didn't seem to care about being found guilty. And he said, hey, I don't care. I'm not afraid to die. And his excuse was, hey, it wasn't my fault. I was high on meth and alcohol. So the judge had to make a decision whether to incarcerate, what incapacitation to give. And here, I just want to go through. These are the factors that we talked about before. The seriousness of the crime, the depravity of the crime, his record, whether he's remorseful. Did he have any attempts of rehabilitation? And would he be a risk? Now, I think some of you would say, well, he's a young man, and maybe the meth affected him, and maybe, a short period of incarceration might be merited, but, maybe he should be able to get out. And here's where I submit to you, I think the standard has to be is, would you want Mr. Rodriguez to live next to you? Would you be willing to take that risk? Most likely, many of you would not. Now, I'm going to go on with another similar type case, and this Chew On Run is his name. And similarly, he was involved in a number of murders throughout the entire West Coast, stretching from Seattle all the way down to Los Angeles, San Bernardino County. And I'm going to go through these very quickly, just to give you a flavor. Now, Chew On Run, he had his friend Pan. They like to rob immigrants, and they knew that many of the immigrants, they had an apartment, and they would sell things from that apartment, such as cigarettes or chewing gum or soft drinks, and they would make cash money that way. So he goes to this Sacramento house and is trying to rob these people. Goes into the apartment, demands money, and the woman doesn't give it to him. And they immediately shoot and kill the husband right then and there. And the son comes to the husband or the father's aid, and they shoot him. And eventually, they don't get any money, so they shoot the mother, the wife. But she doesn't die. So there we have a witness. Now, they come down to San Bernardino, and they're driving around, both of them, Run and Pam, and they see somebody they think might be a gang member. They don't know that for certain, and they start shooting. And they shoot up the car, kill the individual. He wasn't a gang member, but that's what they did. And it was maybe 3 days later, they're over in the Pomona area, not too far away, and they see two men, and they have a rifle. And they put the rifle in the back of the, where the back window is, of this pickup truck. They were going rabbit hunting up at Mount Baldy. And they weren't gang members. They were immigrants who were dishwashers at one of the fast food restaurants. But they thought, Chew thought he might be a gang member. So they start shooting at the truck. And all these bullets come flying into the truck and hit the one man and kills him. So he dies. The other one was able to survive. So that is what happened in Pomona. But now I want to talk about the massacre in San Bernardino. And what that involves is, again, they Chew On Run goes to this house where they think there's a safe, where there's a lot of cash. That was the word. And so they go in there and demand the money, and the lady that's there says, no, I don't have a safe and I don't have any money. And they said, well, you better tell us or we're going to start shooting and killing your children. And she said, I don't have it. And so he takes one of the young children and he executes the child in front of the mother. Well, the mother becomes hysterical, and they say, look, now tell us where it is. And she said, I don't have any. And they execute another child. So this is going on, and they had, I don't know where they got the word, but somehow they got the idea that if you take toothpaste and you stick it up somebody's nose, they'll do anything. It's so painful. So they did that to the lady, and she still didn't tell them where the money was because she didn't have any money, didn't know what to do. So as this is going on, there's the young child, maybe crying. So they go to this infant, and I don't know how many months, maybe 15 months, and they take the knife and they tell her, look, if you don't tell us, we're going to slit the child's throat. This is the knife they used to start to slit the throat of the child. And for some reason, things changed, and they don't finish cutting the throat, and they just shoot at the child. And you can see the child's hand was blown away to some extent from a bullet. So the child survives, but as they're going out the door, they shoot and kill the mother of all those children that they had executed. So they didn't get anything. They were very disappointed. Now, chew and run, just to show the extent of his depravity, he's up in Seattle with another group, and they're trying to rob another group of immigrants. Now, these immigrants were selling and buying jewelry, different types, bracelets, necklaces, rings in particular. So they go in, force their way into the house, and they demand the jewelry. And the lady doesn't give it to them. And so they shoot and kill the husband right there in the kitchen. Shoot and kill him. And then they said, hey, we want the jewelry. She said, I don't have any. We don't know exactly what happened and how it happened, but they thought she had swallowed the jewelry. So they take this knife and they slit her throat, and they're able to recover a ring. And this is the ring that Ron took, and he gave it to his girlfriend afterwards. When the police arrived, they looked at this lady with her throat slit. They found that she had additional rings in her mouth. So that was what was going on. Now, how does it all come to an end? Well, it did in Sacramento on August 16th, 1995. Ron is there. He's talking to somebody in a car, and the police come along and they say, hey, what are you guys doing? It was next to an elementary school. So he said, yeah, we're just talking. Well, can we, check out? They find a shell casing. And all of a sudden, that shell casing matches up all of those shootings. So when it came to trial, what I put together, because the way we were going to make the case was on ballistics. And here you can see the ballistics chart that I put together showing how it was all connected, because there were two guns, and they were by Run and Pan. And when it came to the sentencing period, I listed all the aggravation on one side and then the mitigation on the other side. So here, now we're back to what we said from the beginning. As far as incarceration or incapacitation, what do you think should happen to Ron? Should he be incarcerated for a long period of time? What should happen to him? Well, you can see, back to what I said, you go through all of that. Would you want Chuan Run to be living next door to you? Would you be willing to assume that risk after knowing about what he has done to other human beings? I think most of you would agree you don't want to take a chance. I understand some of you would think that he could be rehabilitated if there was enough counseling, if there was enough therapy. Maybe so, but you can see, tough case for the judge to decide what to do besides incarceration. All right, I got one more that I want to do to give you contrast. Here we have two killers. We have Mezquez and Flores, and they were gang members from the East Side Baldwin Park gang. And they were very proud of it. They wanted to keep it as a nice area. And these are some of the murders that they were involved in. And we're going to go through this very quickly so you can get a flavor for the type of individuals and what should be done to them at time of sentencing. Here in Baldwin Park, they see two guys on a bicycle. They're riding a bicycle. At night, they go to a fast food market and get some things, come back, and they think it might be gang members, and so they start shooting at them. And they shoot and hit one of them, and he falls and he dies. Now, just an example of Flores here, he says, I popped him twice. He fell off the handlebars. The bike rolled over, boom. The dude standing closer to him, the other one's by the driveway, and he's crawling. And then pow, pow, pow. put the rest to him. So that was his mindset as to how you kill people. Now, another one was, I don't know, it was maybe a week later. They see this young, I don't know, a little more than a teenager, drive by in this SUV, and they think he might be a gang member. And so they just start shooting at him, and they kill him right then and there. And this was Flores's comment. He said, I'm the shooter. He stopped. We stopped. I go, boom, doomed him. There was 2 or 3 shots. So that's the way he explains it. Now, this was when both of them went up into the Victorville area, which is up in the desert community way north of Los Angeles. And they go in there. They heard that this individual might be an informant. He was a member of the gang, but he had left the gang. He had moved out. He moved up to Victorville with his girlfriend. And they were afraid of him, that he might be talking to the police. So they go up there and they execute him right there in his house in Victorville. Now, this next one was a little bit different. It was kind of in the San Gabriel area, Temple City area. There was a group of individuals who were standing out in front. There was a kind of a gate fence there, and they see all these men there, and they come up and they start shooting at them. And they hit several of them and kill one of them in particular that falls. They weren't doing anything. They were just talking. Yeah, I think it was on a Sunday. Now, this one was a little bit different. This was out by Ontario Airport. This is a member of their gang, and they felt that maybe he had been talking to the police because he had been arrested for something and had gotten out. And they thought, well, since he got out, he must have told the police something. So they get him in their car, they drive him out near the airport, and they just execute him. Execute him right there and drop his body right on the side of the road there. And this is to one of their members who they had associated with for many years. Now, while they're out there, I think it was maybe a week later, they get on the San Bernardino freeway, and they're going westbound, and they see this deputy sheriff. And they don't know whether the deputy sheriff is following them or not. Then Mezquez and Flores are in 2 separate cars, and then Flores starts shooting and shoots up the police car. The deputy sheriff is able to bring the car to the side of the road without crashing, and he wasn't hit. So what did Flores say about it? He says, yeah, it's hard to shoot when you're in a vehicle and both vehicles are moving and one's turning. So he's very proud of the fact that he was able to do the shooting, even though it was a difficult one to pull off. Now, lastly, we're going to talk about the Santa Monica Pier. It was on July 4th, the early morning of Independence Day. They're out there, Mezquez and Flores, just looking for girls, and the police get the word that they're there, and the Santa Monica police surround him, and Mezquez, he's able to escape. He runs into this arcade, and then he grabs various civilians there and hold them as hostage, and this is the gun that he used. So he stayed there for some time. He wouldn't let any of these people out. And one of them was a woman that he held hostage. It was like for 5 hours. Now the police surrounded, and they're trying to get him to come out. And he comes in and he shoots, continues to shoot at the police officers. And you can see how many police officers were hit. These are different police officers who were caught in the fire. Now, as to the 2 of them, as to the way they describe it, Mezquez says, I'll tell you one thing. I would make a suggestion. The police officers at Santa Monica Pier were very lucky. Let me tell you what I had that day. I had a fully automatic AK-47 and 20-round clip. Wow. So they were proud of the fact how well armed they were and how they could take on the police department. So that is the different crimes that they were involved in. But some of you would say, well, yeah, what about their background and, maybe being put in jail or prison, everything would be fine. Here they are in jail, and both of them have shanks, meaning knives that they have in their cell. And here, just to give you an example, both of them at one time attacked one of the other inmates. Look at all the stab wounds that he suffered. True, he didn't die as a result of it, but these are the type of people that you want to incarcerate, put in a prison. Now, who's going to be safe? They've been attacking guards, and they're attacking the inmates. So back to what we said at the very beginning. If you're going to have incapacitation, what are the factors you're going to consider? We've gone through this several times. The seriousness of the crime, the depravity of it, their background, whether they've had rehabilitation. And again, it comes down to the thing, would you want a Mezquez or Flores to live next door to you? And if you say you want to give them a chance, well, then fine. Then you should take that chance. But I think most people would feel it's too risky. And back to what we said at the very beginning, incapacitation is kind of the end of the line where you've tried everything else out. It's to protect society, and it's to prevent that person from committing crimes any further. And as we said, prison, jail has to be uncomfortable if you want it to be a deterrent factor. So, where are we going with this talk, this podcast? Well, some of you are going to say, well, the different people that we talked about were psychopaths. And maybe that would be a way that some of you would rationalize it, is that they're not mentally ill, they're not mentally sick, they're really addicts. These are individuals who are amoral, and some people would say are evil. Can they be changed? Can a psychopath become a member of society? Yeah, there's a possibility, but there's the risk factor. Do you want to take that risk? So that is the 4 phases of sentencing and punishment. Now, what I realize now is we've got to talk about one other phases of sentencing, and that is the death penalty versus life without the possibility of parole. The reason is that there are many people in many states that have outlawed the death penalty, and all that the judges are left with are life or life without the possibility of parole. So we need to examine that, and that will be at our next podcast. And hopefully you will join us in for another episode of True Crime Files of Los Angeles Inside Story. See you then.